The wind drifted through the town square like an old memory, lifting the dust in lazy spirals and tugging at the edges of worn shawls and tired coats. It was near closing time. The general store's windows were half fogged, caught between the breath of the evening and the warm glow of lamplight inside. The soft hum of gossip floated through the cold air, buzzing like a distant wasp. Horses snorted from the rail, their hooves shifting restlessly, as if they too felt the tension hanging in the air quiet before the storm. Bo Holston moved steadily down the boardwalk, his boots creaking with the rhythm known only to those who've spent too long in their own company. His hat brim cast a shadow over a face that wasn't often known for smiling, a face carved by years of solitude. At 34, he wore isolation like a second skin, as though too much company might crack him. He passed the barber shop without a glance, nodding to no one in particular, and might have made it through town unnoticed if not for the sound. A sharp crack split the air, the kind of noise that stills everything. Heads turned in unison, a collective gasp rising, but then silence. Both Bo and the crowd froze. She was already on the ground. The woman had fallen near the well, her knees scraping the dust, her hair loose and tangled, and one side of her face flushed pink from the blow. A man, tall and sharp-jawed, with a silver watch chain gleaming in the fading light, dusted his palms off as though brushing away an annoying fly, then turned and walked away as though she was something he'd discarded. Nobody moved, but Bo did. He crossed the distance between them with a steady pace, not fast, but sure as if he was a man unafraid of being seen but used to being overlooked. The woman didn't look up. She just breathed through her teeth, one palm bleeding into the dirt. Bo knelt beside her, not grandly, not heroically, just close enough that his coat brushed her skirts and his open, calloused hand appeared in her line of sight. She flinched at first. He didn't flinch back. A few murmurs rose from the crowd, voices hushed behind cupped hands. One voice whispered, "That's Clive Rue's girl. He'll come back." But no one spoke further. Bo simply looked at her, as though she mattered not her wound, not her shame, not the eyes watching from the crowd. Her hand moved to meet his, slow and soft, and the crowd exhaled again, a collective breath of uneasy relief. They rose together, like fog lifting off a riverbank, and walked away, no words exchanged, no explanation offered. Her steps faltered, and Bo matched her pace. One child pointed, and a woman yanked him back by the collar. Behind them, Clive Raw lit a cigar with trembling fingers, watching Bo's back as it disappeared into the gathering dusk. The cabin sat on the edge of the ridge, nestled into a curve of cottonwood trees. The path leading to it wound like a question that had no answer. When Bo opened the door, the warmth inside greeted them like a cautious dog, unsure of strangers. Not much to greet them. A stove that still glowed with embers, a chair that had long forgotten laughter, and shelves lined only with dust and beans. He didn't ask her name. She didn't ask his. Instead, he poured hot water into a basin and handed it to her with a bar of soap and a square of muslin. Then he sat at the table, slowly carving wood, not looking at her, as though his hands needed to stay busy to keep his heart from intervening. She washed in silence, wincing a little when the cloth touched her cheek. Her eyes flickered once toward the door. "You don't owe me anything," he said quietly, still not looking up from his carving. Her voice, dry as cotton, broke the stillness. "You think I'm used to men who don't expect anything." He didn't answer. The fire popped softly in the hearth, and she looked down at her lap. He continued carving. The wood began to take shape a spoon. Not perfect, but honest. That night, she slept in his bed, and Beau took the floor. She asked if he was doing it out of some sense of nobility. He told her no, that he didn't sleep much anymore anyway. In the dark, her voice returned. I stayed with him 3 years. Clive, I thought maybe if I tried harder, I could make him softer. Beau rolled over, faced the wall. That show, my sister thought too. Silence. Where is she now? She ain't, he said. The next morning, the town buzzed. Clive raw Rodihis, gilding up and down the square. Joe Tight asked the sheriff if he'd seen his woman. The sheriff said she'd walked out of a square on her own twolics, and that was all he knew. When Clive cursed, the sheriff looked away. Beau was in the field by then, tilling ground still too cold for seed. Letty. She finally told him, stood on Thepperch, watching crows swirl over Thefraspitten Ridge. She didn't ask to help, but she cooked, washed, sat with him at the edge of the pasture as deer moved through the trees. Their hands never touched again, but something in the silence between them grew warm. On the 5th day, she tried to go in town, walked the road on her own, shoulders back, chin high. But the silence that met her was heavier than any insult. The clerk didn't look at her. A group of women at the pump stopped speaking when she passed. Letty held the sack of flour close to her chest like a shield and walked home. Bezor, her coming before she reached Vikabin. Her steps were stiff, mouth pressed in. He didn't ask, just opened Ed's door and poured coffee. You ever get tired of being stared at? Shisked. I got used to being overlooked, he said. This is just the other side of it. That night, he showed her how to saddle the paint horse. She let out a quiet laugh when she mounted awkwardly and almost tipped sideways. He reached her, steadied her, but didn't touch. Thatlaw, small, surprised, was the first real sound she'd made that didn't taste of bruises. On the 7th day, the hooves beat down the path like Letty heard them first and went pale. Both stepped off the porch just as Clive dismounted, boots crunching frost. You hiding, my woman? He spat. She's not yours. Clive sneered. You want her now? That it want what I already wore thin. Beau didn't flinch, but his jaw tensed. I didn't want property. I want peace. Clive stepped forward. You think you're better than me? No, just quieter. It could have ended there, but Clive made a move toward Letty, toward the porch. It did. The rifle was already in boss. Not aimed, just present. You tuck in at the step, Beau said, and I'll bury your right beside my sister. The words hung like thunder. Clive looked from Thebrel to the woman, and something in his bravado wilted. He turned, spat into the snow, and mounted. He didn't look back. The town heard about it within the hour. By nightfall, folks were saying maybe Clive had gone too far. That maybe Letty had been more trapped than chosen. That maybe Beau Holston had done something noble. Letty stood by the window, watching the snow fall. You mean to keep me here? She asked. Beau didn't answer. She turned because I could leave now. No one would stop me. I know, but I won't. He looked up at Herthon for the first time, really, not with pity, but with possibility. The stove glowed. The wind sighed against the walls like a memory, and softly shisked, Will you marry me, Beau Holston? He didn't speak, just took her hand again. The one he'd lifted from the dust in the town square, and held it like Aemon who'd found something too sacred to speak over. Outside, snow began to fall heavy. But inside, the world was beginning again, and far off from Theridge beyond the cottonwoods, a rider watched them through the trees, his breath rising like smoke, silent as sin.